Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the April MV member exclusive webinar, Moti-Vitality. I'm going to mute everybody here so that we don't get background noise. If you need anything, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. I can actually open my chat window, although sometimes I get going here and I don't always see the chat. But I know Jen monitors that as well. If I don't think I'm ignoring your chat, if I don't respond right away, I'll try and look for it. But so today we're not going to probably go an hour today. A lot of times we schedule an hour for these things. And I try and keep them to right at an hour. I don't think today's going to go an hour, but certainly if you guys have questions or suggestions or thoughts, then let me know. This is one that I don't know that there's a lot that I've seen a lot of like training on this type of thing, on actually how to organize files. Obviously, when you talk about sales training or those types of things, it's all, rah, 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 stay motivated, it's a numbers game, all the typical sales stuff, salesy stuff, right? I kind of wanted to just get down to some actual or filing and organizing today, because a lot of times people, when we go into sales, we don't really have a system in place. We're really good with people, we're really good with, but if there are so many salespeople, even sales professionals, and I guess even myself sometimes, where I'm like, I gotta remember to do this, or shoot, I totally forgot about that. And a lot of it starts with organization. So first and foremost, of course, I want to say thank you. I truly do appreciate the opportunity to serve you in this way. It is always my goal to make sure that the information that I give to you is at least as valuable as the time that you're giving to me. So I definitely appreciate that a lot. So thank you very much. I do want to point out also real quick before we start that Moti-Vitality has now become a distributor for a lot of different products. Here's like please pause for this commercial break. We've become a distributor for a lot of different products, and we're adding more and more and more to Moti-Vitality.com every day. So please take a look at that. And then I also want to invite everybody to come on to the Thursday morning MV Pro call. We love to have people on and be part of the discussion. We don't talk product, we don't talk company. All we do is talk water treatment sales and what we all run into out there every day. Tomorrow, in fact, we're going to talk about kind of how to get out of the spring funk, that happens. What happens when you're going through the motions but you can't close? How do you pull yourself out of that little those moments? And so we'll talk about that just a little bit tomorrow. In 2 weeks, it's not next week. It's actually, I think, on the 10th. May 10th is the date. If it's a Thursday, I'm pulling that out of my memory, so it may be inaccurate. But let me look here. May 17th. No, it might be the 10th. Let's see. Yeah, May 10th. Tuesday, May 10th, we're going to have a special guest speaker, and it will qualify for continued education credits. And we're going to have a guy on talking about arsenic testing, but also brewery testing, the kind of test that you do at breweries. And so it's a company that sells problem water test kits and a bunch of different things. And we're going to have this guy come on and talk about some of the tests and how they work and stuff like that. And that one's going to qualify for CE. So hopefully, hope to have you on there as well. But let's get right into today, the topic of the day, which is how to organize, how to file. This is what I did when I was in sales. I don't know that I had any real formal training on this. It's just something that I put together. I know that some of you probably have your own systems. There's nothing that you're going to hear today that you have to do. It's just what I did. So one of the first things I did before I went on a sale, and I usually did this on Monday. So those of you that have read my book, you know that I made Mondays my office day, just because what I found was that I would have these plans to go canvas this house or go check on this or whatever, and it just seemed like I was spending so much time on Monday putting out fires or having to get things organized, and by the time I would actually get out to go do those things, the day would be done. So I just said, screw it, I'm going to make Mondays my office day. And what I would do on Monday, I had a to-do list of things to do on Monday that I would check my inventory. So I have these boxes. Now I use these for labels and just different things that I have in my office. But I had these boxes, these very ones in my office, just like the mailboxes you would see at any other office. And in them, I put all the brochures. So in the top, and they all went down and then down again the other side. So I would start off with the way I was going to build my folder, my file. So I would have sales agreements up top here. I would have, then going down, I would have financing paperwork, and then going down more, I would have maybe brochures. I'd have a plumbing assessment form. I would have the brochures, my thank you notes. I would have all of these things in my everything that I was going to carry in my folder, okay, in my file. And for the beginning of the week, I would make sure that I had at least 10 of these things ready to go, so that if I got an appointment anytime, I could just grab one of those folders. I carried a label maker with me, and I'm going to show you what I did with that label maker and how I labeled them. But I always printed out a label of the first and last name, and I put that on one of those folders. I would then take, I used ACT as as my CRM to keep track of, today you might use Salesforce or Zoho, or you might have your own, or you can use, on Moti-Vitality.com, you can download what I used before I started using the computer. I used Canvas and contact sheets, and they were basically just a note, just a history of what I had with the, what I ran into when I was out talking to customers or working with customers or whatever, and so they would, I would put those things in that folder as well. So I'd have a history of that. So I grabbed that folder out that had all those literature. Now, I also used, and today especially, I think it's easier with the tablets. They didn't have iPads back when I was in sales, but I used my laptop an awful lot to do a digital presentation when I was in the home. But sometimes, and I mean, let's be realistic, the owners and the manufacturers, they all want you to use that digital presentation every time, which I loved. I loved using it. I wish there had been a tablet. I would have used a tablet a lot more often. The computer was kind of a pain to set up in there, but it was worth it because the graphics and to do all of that. I used that thing almost all the time. But there were times when it just wasn't feasible. Maybe you didn't have time to set it up. Maybe there wasn't a place to set the computer down. So I liked to have all the backup brochures in that folder with me when I went out there. I never did use, I just didn't like it. I mean, I can't say I never did. I started off doing it because, like all of us, we went to, or a lot of us, we went to the manufacturer and they told you how to go through that 3-hour presentation using the flip chart. You open this presentation up and you talk about the company and you talk about yourself and all the stuff, and then you just sort of walk them through this. Let me flip this next page, and then I'll go to this next page, and then I'll go to this next page. I don't know. It's a good place to learn a presentation. As those of you that have been doing it a long time know, you kind of develop your own style and kind of do a hybrid. You end up doing a hybrid. Hopefully you're still doing some sort of a presentation, but it's not usually that 3-hour thing that they teach you right when you're brand spanking new as you come in. Although there are some companies out there that they still require you to do that, and it does work. I mean, certainly you close some sales that way. But anyway, I just went down through the list here and just built these folders. So when I had a sales appointment, I could just grab that folder and have it ready to go at any time. I'd throw the name of the customer on there. Now, the reason I built that folder before I went to the house it just looked professional. It was a manila folder, and it just, I thought it looked professional. There were times I'd walk in and I'd have that label on that folder, and I mean, even, you know, if it happened to be an appointment the same day, I carry the label maker with me and I'd throw it on there, and the customer would say, "Wow, I already have my own file." Yeah, absolutely. You're a customer of ours regardless of whether you make an investment decision. So so I would build that folder. Well, this is interesting. Snuck up there behind it. So here you'll see, and I'm going to show you the boxes where I stored this and how I did it. But here you'll see, I mean, this is just a picture of that folder, and you'll see where I put the label, put the name on there. And this was the contact report that I printed off from ACT. I'm going to walk you through. I have a video where I just pulled one of these files out, and I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I put in. But I'm going to tell you. So this is after the sale, after the customer, after I've gone in. I copied everything. You'll see that in a second. You'll see that I had copies of checks and copies of the financing paperwork and copies of the contract, and so I'd take the brochures that I didn't leave with the customer and I'd recycle them. I'd put them back in that box, and I'd just sort of reuse them again, as long as I hadn't written or drawn all over them or anything. And that's another thing that I did on Mondays, by the way, is I checked my inventory. You know, I made sure that I had all the brochures I needed. Frankly, the only time I ever went into the office, the work office, I mean, I had a home office, and the closest store to me was 45 minutes away, and so I went to the office once every week and a half, once every 2 weeks. I faxed everything in. When I had a sales contract, I faxed it in, or and then I'd go to the office periodically and I'd replenish my brochures and my paperwork and everything, any of the supplies I needed. But that's really the only time. I hated going to the office. It just seemed like every time I go in there, you know, you plan to run in, grab something real quick, but then you get to talking to somebody, or there's a fire, or they're like, "Oh, hey, you know, can you watch the front desk," or whatever, you know, and I don't know, it just seemed to always, it just took too much time. So anyway, this is a video. Let me show you, and I'm gonna turn the sound off on it, and I'll just walk you through. So you'll see the folder here. I mean, okay, so let me pause this for a minute, because what I did, and I'm going to show you the box here in a second, but you see how thick that green folder was? I just pulled that out of one of my old, so I've actually disposed of a lot of them. I've held on to, I don't know, 2 boxes, maybe there might be 3 around here, 3 years of customers, just so that I could do this for training, you know, to show people exactly this. But I put all of them each year. This box that you'll see, in fact, you can kind of see it in the corner, and you're going to see it better here in a minute. It says customers 2002 or 2001. I can't tell what date that is right there from that, but you'll see I just put my entire customer list all in one box at the end of the year. So the current year was in my desk. So I did all of this. I put all of those actually in my desk for the current year. And then at the end of the year, I would take everything from the previous year and I would put it in a file box and store it in the office. And I'd keep it close, because it was possible that sometimes I would take a customer that hadn't sold. So I had the file in the customer not sold portion of that box, and I'd go through and find them and pull it out and have a customer that had sold. Or if I had a customer that had sold the, you know, that wanted to buy an additional piece of equipment, you know, so maybe they were a customer of mine, they bought a softener, and then 3 years later they bought an RO or an iron filter or something like that. So I would go back, and then I would always need to, I make copies of referrals. So in fact, you'll see in this sheet, I think in this first one, there's a referral request for like a check request, because we would give either gift certificates or checks to people for referrals, and so I would make copies of those. So even if this was a customer from 2 or 3 years prior, I'd still need to make copies and put a copy of that referral in their folder. So I would go back to it and file file this. So let me show you, just show you how this worked. So we'll open it up. So here was the contact report. This is all the history of my customers. You know, where it came from, what type of lead it was, just the you know, just all the history. I had that at the very beginning. A lot of times, if it was a new house where I had really worked hard on it, and you know, there was a lot of contact, it took a long time to build up, there would sometimes be 2 or 3 pages of this in the notes and history. So just I don't know if you can see that. That's okay. So that is the customer referral request, where they had given me a referral to somebody else. Or actually, I think that looks like it was actually a referral to the builder. So the referral given by the builder, Tony Zimmerman, on that one. So I gave that builder $50, or actually, it looks like it was a homeowner because it says builder yes or no, and I have no mark there. I don't remember. This was a long time ago. So apparently, Tony Zimmerman had given me a referral to Robert and Sue Adams. Okay, and so I'd send a check request. Here are the sales contracts that we'd had. This was the original lead sheet that came in to the office. So apparently, that had, you know, they had called. You'll see here is a copy of so that's a yellow copy of the sales contract. There's a copy of the check. Sorry, this is so bouncy around. I was moving the stuff through and filming with my iPhone at the same time. So now I want to show you this. Let's see if I can pause this for a minute. I'm going to show you. Okay, right there. Let me pause. Okay. So this is obviously a 2001 box, that tells me. All right, so what I did, you're going to see that number there, the dollar amount. That was the commission that I expected to make on this sale. So what I would do after, this is the yellow copy. So every customer, every contract that we had 3 copies of it. We had the white, we had the pink, and we had the yellow. Okay, the white was supposed to go to the office, although I always made a copy of that white as well, because as you know, sometimes with carbon copies, it doesn't always come through really clear, especially on the back copies. So I would always make a photocopy of that front white sheet as well and put that in there. But then the yellow copy was for us. The pink copy was supposed to go to the customer. The yellow copy, now, and different companies do this differently, okay, so depending on the colors. But the yellow copy was supposed to be for us, the sales professional. So what I would do when I made a sale is in my desk drawer, I had a file called To Be Paid. It was I had a green hanging file, and in the Manila folder, it said, I had one that said commission, and then I had one that said follow-ups. Okay, so 2 folders hanging in that green folder labeled To Be Paid. Okay, so what I would do is I would take, when I made a sale, I would calculate what I expected to make in commission on it, and I would write that up in the upper right-hand corner. And then I would put it in the commission Manila folder. When I got my paycheck, we got a list of all the customers that we had been paid on. I would reconcile it, and I would go through and I would make sure that I got paid, number one, the dollar amount that I was expecting to get paid on it. If it didn't match, then I was making a phone call saying, how come I only got $158 on this instead of $224? Okay, so I would make a phone call and I would reconcile that, and I would make sure that it was that it reconciled, that I got paid what I expected to get paid on it. And then when I got paid on it, I would take it and I would put it. Now I had a red star eventually, that like a little stamp, and you'll see on 2002, 2003, maybe even towards the end of 2001, I added another step to it. I would actually put stamp a red star after it had been paid on the follow-up. But on this one, what I was still doing here is I would take it, and after I'd been paid on it, I would take it and I would put it in the follow-up. Okay, when I scheduled the follow-up, or when I completed the follow-up, I would then mark it with a check mark. Okay, and then I would put it, because a lot of you, you get paid on a follow-up, or maybe you do, maybe you don't, but we actually held back a little bit of money, and we recommend this. We hold back a little bit of money for that follow-up to be done. Till the follow-up's done, we hold back a little bit on the commission. So I would then put that in the follow-up to be done, and when the follow-up was completed, and when I'd been paid on the follow-up, I would then put a check mark on it, and I would take that yellow sheet out, and I would put it back in the customer's folder. So if ever I wanted to make sure that I got paid on something, I could open up that customer's folder and look at it, and as long as it had the check mark on it, I know that I had completed the entire process there. Okay. So let's see if there's more on this that's relevant. Yeah, so you just see this is the next folder I opened up. Here's a copy of the follow-up form, which, by the way, we have in our at Moti-Vitality.com. You can get to, and then you'll just see if we opened up, you'd see similar things. I made copies of thank you notes, coupons. If they used a coupon, I made a copy of the coupon so I would know where it came from. You know what kind of specials there were, all of that stuff. So what green folders that I have hanging in my file cabinet, like I said, so there were 3 of them. I would have where I would file those manila folders with the customers' names on them. What I would do with those, one of 3 things happened with that folder. After I had a sales appointment, what I would do with that manila folder is I would take it and put it into one of 3 places. I had one that said customers sold, I had one that said customers not sold, and then I had a pending. So these were the green within my current file cabinet. Within my current file cabinet, I had these. There were, like I said, 4 of these green hanging file folders. Actually, I had a couple more too. Like I had my commission reports and my check stubs and things like that. But in terms of what I was filing that stayed there, I had the customer sold, a customer not sold, a pending, and a to be paid. And I just described the to be paid with the follow-up in there for you, okay? So the commissions to be paid and the follow-ups in there. But every time at the end of a sales appointment, I would place that manila folder into one of these places. If I'd sold it, obviously it's going in the customer sold. If sometimes you leave an appointment, you go, that's not a sale. It's just not. It was not going to happen. They are moving in 2 weeks, and it's just not a sale. I mean, sometimes you just know. In which case, I would take it and put it in the customer not sold file, or I would put it in the pending. Like I didn't close it, but it's one that I needed to follow up on. The pending folder usually stayed with me in the car. I had a little portable file cabinet that I carried with me, and I would usually carry the pending folder with me. But what I did is I had a rule that I put no more than 5 folders in that pending folder at any given time. Now, keeping in mind that I did keep track of my to-dos and everything on my CRM. Like I said, I was using Act, but if you have Salesforce or Zoho or whatever CRM you're using right now, it doesn't mean, just because you don't have that hard file with you doesn't mean that you're going to forget about it or not call on it. But it forced me, because I only allowed myself 5 folders in my pending file. It forced me to prioritize, to be realistic about whether or not somebody was going to close or not. So the 5 were the 5 hottest. Those were the ones that I was most likely to close. Okay, I needed to have 5 in there. Those are the ones that when I had 15 minutes before an appointment and I was pulled over waiting in the cul-de-sac down the road before that appointment, those are the ones that I called on. Okay, and then I would cycle them through. So if I had 6, then it would force me to go through that 5 and say, okay, this one is not the highest priority. Now, this is what like I said, let me show you this.
So this is one of the boxes.
So you'll see, okay, so in 2000, just the, yeah, let me go back. All right, I couldn't remember which video I had loaded up. So you'll notice on this is one of the boxes. So I obviously, now that I'm not in sales anymore, I don't have this in my desk drawer anymore. But what I did do when I filed all of these, notice, and this is basically the same way I did it in my current desk drawer. Okay, but when I took them out of my desk drawer at the end of the year and filed them, this is exactly what I did. I put a piece of red construction paper back in the back. So these folders in back, these are the customers not sold. They started in alphabetical order by last name again. These are the ones that I did not sell that year. All of these in the front are the ones that I had sold. So these are all the appointments that I had in each year. In 2001, these are all the appointments that I had, all the sales appointments that I had. The ones in back are the ones I didn't sell. Separated, I know where they're at exactly by where that piece of construction paper was. I just folded it up and put it back there so I knew where it started. And all of these were the customers sold. So if I had, let's say it's 2002, and somebody calls, you know, that I haven't talked to or that I've been following up on, maybe I had put it in the customers not sold because they, you know, had been a long time, or there's nothing that says you can't take it out of the customer not sold and put it in the customer sold section. But, you know, just sometimes you got to admit to yourself it's been 7 or 8 months and they haven't returned your call, they keep brushing you off or whatever, that it's a customer not sold. So you put it in there. It doesn't mean you don't follow up with them. So periodically, you know, maybe I had it on my Monday call list where I called them and said, hey, you guys, did you finish remodeling your kitchen? You said last year you were going to put something in after you're done remodeling your kitchen. Yeah, you know, it's so funny you just called. We were going to call you. Yeah, definitely. We're ready to put that system in. Awesome. You take that out of the customer not sold. You go to the hard file, you take it out of there, and you put it in the customer sold. That's a beautiful thing. I love it. This is also a really quick way, if you're not keeping track of this stuff, to get an idea of what your closing ratio is. I mean, just in glancing at this, I think it's pretty obvious that I had a decent closing ratio. It was certainly more than 50%, you know. So, and here's where the, you'll see, okay, so I actually filed everything by last name. And actually, you know, for whatever reason, you can do it however you want. I alphabetized it by last name, and then I always did it by the kind of the head of the household. And sometimes, especially in 2018, you know, it may be that there are 2 guys living there or two women living there. I would make a determination. Sometimes I can think of a couple times incorrectly where, you know, on who the head of the household was, because maybe they have 2 last names, 2 separate last names. Sometimes it's even husband and wife with different last names, you know. So, and head of the household is such an antiquated term, but you do kind of have to make a determination. Maybe it's the person you're talking to the most, or that you're most likely going to remember, right? So this is how I filed all of those folders, and you'll see the same thing. This was maybe 2002. I don't remember the date on it, but you look at the construction paper in back, and that is where you know, how I kept track of that stuff so that you could pull them all out, just all the way through. Okay. Okay. So I think, I mean, that's, like I said, this webinar today was just you know, just on how to organize this stuff. I'm going to unmute you guys. I told you it wasn't going to take a super long time today. We're not going to take the whole hour, but any suggestions or thoughts or comments on, let me just go over here. Oh, you get unmute all. Okay, so any questions or thoughts or comments on any of that, you guys? Any thoughts on it?
Hey, Kelly, this is my first call. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Who's this?
It's Jamie West from Valdosta, Georgia.
Hey, how are you? Welcome.
Good. One thing, a lot of the stuff that you talked about, we already do at CTEC, but you definitely gave me some great ideas today. One thing I make sure to do is that my electronic filing reflects my physical filing.
Yes.
It just is simple.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's, the electronic opportunities now today with, with whatever CRM you're using and everything, it needs to, it does allow you to have it a lot more portable and there, but I can tell you, and Jen can attest to this, everything is cloud-based. Back when I was in sales, it was not cloud-based, and just about everything now is cloud-based, but you can still lose stuff. Or it gets input into the computer wrong or something like that. So it's so nice to be able to go back and look at the hard numbers that are actually handwritten on the paperwork. It doesn't lie.
Right.
So to have that backup, to be able to go back and refer to it and have it organized the same way you have your digital organized, it's a great piece of feedback. Thank you for that. Absolutely. What else? Anybody else? Jen, you have any thoughts on this?
No, I remember that's the way that I did it when I was in sales, and it really did help out a lot to do it that way. Yes, today in the electronic world, it's awesome, but there are so many times you can accidentally input numbers incorrectly, and, it's good to have a backup, especially when you're coming to things like your follow-ups. If possibly it gets turned in, but, for whatever reason, it was misplaced on somebody's desk, or you thought you turned it in and come to find out it was in the back seat of your car, at least that way you have your backups. And that's nice. And then also, sometimes it's just good to have that hard copy piece of paper. That's how it's just like reading a book, So I like having a hard piece.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Tim, you're on the call. Any comments or thoughts or suggestions on how you guys do it?
Yeah, I actually go one step further. I actually take a green folder and a manila folder, and I actually leave the green folder with the customer, and I ask them if they want the brochures or if they'd like me to email them the PDF of the brochures, things like that, so that they have an actual file already started for their home, so that when I do go in and do an installation, they can actually put the instruction manuals for their RO or their water softener in something that's already labeled for them. That's kind of got our sticker on it with information, so that a business card sometimes just gets lost. So we actually put a green folder with our with all of our business information on a sticker on the front.
That's kind of a neat idea. Wow, that's kind of
Tim,
neat.
Do you do that at the appointment, or do you do that at the follow-up or during the installation?
Normally I'll do that at the appointment if they want the information, because we'll take them, we're here in Denver, and I can pull a lot of the water quality reports and things like that. So normally when I'm going through the assessment and their more or less what their needs are going to be, I'll show them their water quality report so that I don't have to do some of the testing, and so I'll ask them, hey, do you want to copy this water quality report, or would you like me to PDF it so that you and your husband can look it over on your computer, or whatnot, and then, when I do that, I also say, hey, here's a few brochures of the products I use, do you want these, so that if I can save the paper, I can, and, I'll email it to them, but I always try to just leave them a green folder. This way it also has my brochure in it and our information, so that it's one of those where it kind of gets put into their, it's kind of something I leave with them so that they have that kind of just as a reminder. Oh, they'll come across it in a couple of weeks when they're cleaning up their desk and say, oh, we haven't followed up with him or whatnot, and then, they'll get another call from me.
I like that. So this hanging folder, you actually leave them a hanging folder?
Yep.
See, I like that because that's so much different. It sets it apart from, it assumes that they're going to file it somewhere and hold on to it and keep it. And it's so much different even than, you know, I mean, there are folders that you can put together, like presentation folders that I've seen people leave, and I love that idea too. I know some of the manufacturers have those, you know, where you hand it to them and it's like a leave behind, you know. But man, I like that. That's a neat idea. What else? Anything else, you guys? Okay, Jose, I see you just hopped on, and this is a shorter webinar today, so we could go back. I'm going to probably convert this and get it uploaded even this afternoon yet. So we should, if you have somebody who would like to go back and review this, then it'll be there. Other than that, thanks, you guys. I really, really do appreciate it. For those of you looking to get CWS certified, we have the MEP starting in 2 weeks, I think, 2 or 3. I don't remember the exact date on that one either. But we've been sending out quite a bit of constant contact messages on things, so keep your eye out for those things. And I'd love to have you on the Thursday morning calls tomorrow morning, 8:30 Eastern. So thanks, everybody, and have a great day. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.